Ok, muy bien. Hola a todos. Hello. Estamos ahora en el capítulo número 3 y hoy vamos a hablar acerca de los adjetivos descriptivos, descriptive adjectives, from section 3.1 in Panorama. Just a refresher, grammar-wise, that adjectives describe people, places, and things. And in Spanish, we use the verb ser, which you already know very well, to describe the different characteristics of one of these people, places, or things. So ser and adjectives will be used to describe personality or physical traits. He is tall, he is short. Size, the book is big. Color, it is green. Shape, it is round. And appearance, it is good looking, for example. So the verb ser plus adjectives to describe those things. In English, as you know, just an adjective works the same for everybody. So nice. He's nice, she's nice, we're nice, they're all nice, everybody's nice. In Spanish, as you've seen, the adjectives and everything have to agree. So they're going to agree in gender and also in noun, or excuse me, in number, with the thing that they're describing. Okay, so that's important because if I say, I see a big tree, it's not, even though I in the subject of that sentence, the word big is not describing me. That's not an adjective for the subject. It's an adjective for the direct object. So adjectives agree in number and gender with the thing that they are describing. And many of these, from these examples, the subject is the thing being described. So Juan es simpático, Elena es simpática, and ellos son simpáticos. But that's because the subject is the thing that's being described. So just remember that. They do agree in gender and noun, but with the thing that they're describing. There are 4 different ways, then, you can guess what they are, to have endings on these adjectives: feminine singular, feminine plural, masculine singular, masculine plural. So it's going to be the same as what we've already seen with articles and nouns themselves. So el muchacho, one, it's one, right, singular, and it's muchacho, so it's plural, el muchacho alto. We have more than one, los muchachos altos. So it's important to realize that we have changed 3 different parts of that phrase, from the tall boy to the tall boys. So the gets changed, the article, the noun gets changed, and also now the adjective. For the feminine side, la muchacha alta, las muchachas altas. So just remember that things are going to agree. And that'll be important for you to remember as you're listening, as you're speaking, writing. Okay, adjectives that end in E or a consonant have the same masculine and feminine forms. They don't change for masculine and feminine, but they do change for plurality. So, for example, the adjective inteligente, it means intelligent. El chico inteligente, la chica inteligente, but then it changes for plural. Los chicos inteligentes, las chicas inteligentes. So if it ends in E, you're not changing that E to an A. You're just changing it for singular or plural. Difícil means difficult. El examen difícil. Los exámenes difíciles. You already seen that, right? If it ends in a consonant to make it plural, we add es. La clase difícil, las clases difíciles. So if it ends in a consonant or E, you're not going to change it for plural, or excuse me, for masculine or feminine, but you are going to change it for singular or for plural. There are also adjectives that end in OR. OR is variable. It means it does change for masculine and feminine, as well as for singular and plural. And these, we see a word that ends in OR, usually it means you've taken a verb, and now you've made that verb into an adjective. So el hombre trabajador, trabajador comes from the verb trabajar, but you're making it by adding this or onto the end, you're making it, now it refers to a person that does that thing. So el hombre trabajador means the worker man, or la mujer trabajadora means she's a working woman, she's a hard, and it really describes that they're hard workers. So it's a compliment. So because it ends in OR, you're going to change it. El hombre trabajador, los hombres trabajadores, la mujer trabajadora, and las mujeres trabajadoras. So that's important just because on this page we said if it ends in a consonant, right, it doesn't change from masculine and feminine. But the exception is if that consonant is an R from OR, then it will change for plurality as well as for gender. Okay. So el hombre trabajador, los hombres trabajadores, la mujer trabajadora, las mujeres trabajadoras. So here's a list of adjectives. The masculine form, as you know, the masculine plural form will refer to groups that include male and female, mixed genders. We've already said that before, and that's not a new concept to you. Manuel es alto, Lola es alta, pero Manuel y Lola son altos. Okay, so the masculine form is used for groups of mixed genders. So these are your vocabulary. There's not a ton of it, and most of them, a lot of them, at least you could guess and go through. So let's go through this pronunciation-wise. I want you to repeat after me. I'm going to repeat it the masculine form, and then also if there's a difference for the feminine form. So clase, repitan. Alto, alta, okay, means tall. Antipático, antipática, okay. Bajo, baja. Bonito, bonita. Bueno, buena. Delgado, delgada. Difícil. Okay, that ends in an L, so it doesn't change. Fácil also ends in an O, so it doesn't change for plural. Feo, fea, ugly. Gordo, gorda. Grande, grande ends in E, so it doesn't change. For feminine, it does change for plural. Guapo, guapa. Importante, inteligente, interesante. Joven, joven ends in an N, so it doesn't change for feminine, but it does change for plural. Malo, mala. Mismo, misma. Moreno, morena. Mucho, mucha. Pelirrojo, pelirroja. This is an interesting one. The rojo, peli, comes from the word for pelo, which means hair. Rojo is the color for red. And because when you have an R at the beginning of a word, you roll it, rojo. If you put pelirrojo together and you didn't have the double R, you would just say pelirrojo. So you wouldn't double that R. So to make it sound the same as if you were saying it's two separate words, then they put a double R in that. I think that's amazing. So pelirrojo and pelirroja for redhead gingers. Pequeño, pequeña, small. Rubio, rubia. Simpático, simpática. Notice antipático and simpático are antonyms. They're opposite each other. Tonto, tonta. Trabajador, trabajadora. Viejo, vieja. Okay, so there are some good adjectives you'll need to learn to memorize. And my tip is always to go back and try to think of things that remind you of that. For example, I knew a kid in 4th grade, name was Gordon. He was chubby, and so that's the way I learned to associate gordo with. In fact, they call him gordon, which just means fatty. But anyway, so look at words. Think of the Rio Grande is the Grand Canyon, right? It's a big canyon. The Rio Grande is a big river. So you look at these words. Obviously, the importante, inteligente, interesante. Those are obvious that you can pick out with that. But go through and associate these words with different things so that you can have an easier time of memorizing these adjectives and what they mean. All right, now we're going to look at different nationalities. Unlike in English, In Spanish, we do not capitalize the nationality of somebody. We do capitalize the name of the country, but we do not capitalize like he's a German speaker, he's a Mexican boy. So that part, that nationality that comes from the country does not get capitalized. And again, our rules are going to apply here. If it ends in a consonant, we can add an R to the end, or add an A to the end to make it feminine. And then when we look at plurality, we'll come to that as well. So, clase, repitan. Alemán. Alemana. Okay, the male form and the feminine form for German. Argentino. Argentina. Canadiense. Canadiense. Ends in E, so we don't change it for the feminine form. Chino. China. Costarricense. A person from Costa Rica is a Costa Rican, and again, ends in A, so we don't have to change that. Cubano. Cubana. Ecuatoriano. Ecuatoriana. Español. Española. Estadounidense. Okay, so the word for the United States in Spanish is Estados Unidos. So estadounidense means somebody from that country. Again, the ends in E, we're not changing it. Francés. Francesa. Inglés. Inglesa. And again, that's from the country. Just because we speak English, if we're from the United States, we're not English, we're not English in this sense. Italiano. Italiana. Japonés. Japonesa. This one's interesting. If you go back to the original, from week 1, we talked about different rules of pronunciation. Japonés, because it ends in an S, but the accent, the emphasis on that last syllable requires an accent on that E to make it Japonés. But because Japonesa, we add an A to the end, and the accent still comes on the second to the last syllable, which is the rule for vowels, for words that end in vowels. So Japonés with an accent, Japonesa without an accent. Mexicano. Mexicana. Norteamericano. Norteamericana. And just to remember, North America includes Canada, the US, and Mexico are all countries in North America. And so you'll want to be sensitive. Somebody from, a lot of times it will use that to refer to a Caucasian person from the US or Canada, but Mexicanos or also North Americanos are in the continent of North America. And you want to be sensitive. You don't say things like soy americano. If you live in North or South America, you're also an American because you live in the Americas. So you want to be sensitive to that. That's why the phrase estadounidense specifically refers to somebody from the United States. Puertorriqueño. Puertorriqueña. Ruso. Rusa. Okay, for Russians. Okay. So again, they follow the specific rules, but each country has a different way. Many countries have a different way for how the nationality part of that country is formed. So that's not necessarily consistent. All right. Adjectives and nationality, they do change like other descriptive adjectives. So if they end in an O, it changes to A. The plural is formed by adding S or ES, as we saw. So we have Chino goes to China, Mexicano goes to Mexicana, Argentino, Argentinos, Cubana, Cubanas. Okay, so if it ends in a consonant, ends in O or A, you still change the ending and add an S to make it plural. Now we've already said if they end in E, we don't change them to A, right? That's going to be for male or for female, but we do still make it plural. Canadiense for male or female, Canadienses for plural, Estadounidense and Estadounidenses for plural. If it ends in a consonant, just like we've said before, to make it feminine, add an A. Alemán, alemana, japonés, japonesa, español, española, inglés, inglesa. Okay, so same rules. Descriptive adjectives and adjectives of nationality generally follow the nouns they modify. So you're going to, instead of saying, and you've probably heard this before, in Spanish you wouldn't say the White House, you say the house white. La casa blanca. So noun first and adjective second. We will talk about an exception here, but again, normally, typically, generally, 98% of the time, noun first, adjective afterwards. So clase repitan. El niño rubio es de España. Okay. La mujer española habla inglés. Okay, so same thing. Noun first, and then adjective, descriptive adjective afterwards. Okay, now there's another form of adjectives, and this will be obvious for you if you think about it. Numbers are a form of adjectives, right? And numbers are describing the quantity of the noun they modify, and numbers come before. We've already talked about that. So adjectives that quantify, that talk about how many of something there are, they come before. And so just keep that rule in your mind that you already know that numbers come first. So things like muchos, which means many, pocos, which means few, that kind of thing, those are describing the quantity, and those come before the noun. So hay muchos libros en la biblioteca. Hay muchos libros, so it's still agreeing, right? Masculine, feminine, and number, so it's still agreeing in gender and in plurality. Hablo con dos turistas puertorriqueños. Hablo con dos, so the number comes first. Turistas, puertorriqueños means they're from Puerto Rico, so they come afterwards. Now think of that sentence. If they were two female Puerto Rican tourists, hablo con dos turistas puertorriqueñas, right? Dos obviously isn't changing. Turista, because it ends in ISTA, it could be feminine or masculine, and so you just modify that with the correct form of the adjective. Okay, now, so we said there's typically 98% of the time the adjectives come afterwards. Mal, malo, which means bad, and bueno can come before the noun. And interesting enough, the meaning of the sentence does not change. What does happen is in the masculine singular form, those two adjectives get shortened. So bueno becomes buen, and malo becomes mal if it comes before a masculine singular noun. Okay? And then again, important, the meaning of the sentence does not change. So these two sentences, Joaquín es un buen amigo, and Joaquín es un amigo bueno, both mean the same thing. Joaquín is a good friend. Okay? So because we've chosen for whatever reason to put it before the adjective, it's going to be shortened to buen, but when it comes after the adjective, it stays bueno. If it was María es una buena amiga, right? Now it's before a feminine noun, so it's not being shortened. Or María es una amiga buena. So you can still put it before the adjective. It just doesn't get shortened, but it still agrees in gender and number. Hoy es un mal día. Today is a bad day. Hoy es un día malo. So because día is masculine, even though it ends in A, we're shortening the malo to mal when it comes before the adjective. Okay? So bueno goes to buen before a singular masculine adjective. Malo goes to mal before a singular masculine, noun. Before singular masculine nouns. Bueno to buen and malo to mal. And the meaning of the sentence does not change. Okay, so aquí unos ejercicios. Here's some examples. Once you number your papers from 1 to 4 different times, okay? And you're going to go through they've already told you the adjective is simpático. How will you change simpático for those 4 questions? The next 4, the adjective is difícil. How will you change that? Then alemán, German, and guapo. Okay, so pause for a second, number your papers, go through these 16 exercises, and then come back and we'll go through them together. Okay, well, number 1, simpático. They already have it there for you. Mi hermano es simpático. La profesora Martínez es simpática. It's singular and feminine, so we change that adjective to simpática. Rosa y Teresa son simpáticas, right? They're 2 females, plural, simpáticas. Nosotros somos simpáticos. Because we're saying nosotros, we're implying that there's at least one male present, right? So it's going to be nosotros, will agree with simpáticos. For difícil, which means difficult, la química es difícil. El curso es difícil. That's still a singular masculine form. Las pruebas son difíciles, because difícil ends in a consonant. We don't change it for feminine. We only change it for plurality. Los libros son difíciles. So same thing. It's not being changed for masculine, but it is being changed for plurality. Hans es alemán. Mis primas son alemanas. Marcos y yo somos alemanes, right? Now, because primas is feminine, it goes to alemana, but because Marcos y yo, it's masculine, but we do have to change it for plurality, and that's es on the end. Y mi tía es alemana. Next one, guapo, handsome. Su esposo es guapo. Mis sobrinas son guapas. Los padres de ella son guapos. Marta es guapa. Okay? So, again, the concept here is how you make the masculine and feminine form and how you make a plural form. And then when it needs to change, which adjectives, the ones that end in consonants, will stay the same for masculine. Okay, now, so we have malo and bueno that can go before the nouns without a change of meaning. The exception here is grande. When grande becomes before a noun, it changes to gran, so it shortens as well, but the meaning also changes. Because now we're putting it first, we're emphasizing the word grande, and that's going to have more importance. So the equivalent of that in English is great when it comes before the noun, and big or large when it comes after the noun. So again, that's 3 words that get shortened, right? Bueno, malo, and grande. Bueno, malo don't change the meanings, but grande does. It gets shortened to gran, and the meaning now becomes great. And so that's when you're trying to decide where you're going to put grande. Do you mean it's something great? Then it goes before the noun. Do you mean it's something large? Then it goes before the noun. This one stays, grande goes to gran also for feminine. So it actually is you could consider a whole different noun. But just like bueno and malo don't change for feminine, grande does. So it becomes gran whether the noun is masculine or feminine, as long as it's a singular noun. Don Francisco es un gran hombre. He's a great man. If you said Don Francisco es un hombre grande, then you're talking he is built like the rock, right? He's a big man. But because it comes before, we're great, so it's a compliment. He's a great man. La familia de Inés es grande. So it comes after grande, still refers to, modifies familia, but it's coming afterwards, so it will stay in its grande form. It means big. Okay, so here are one. I want you to number your papers again. And numbers 3, you're going to say it 2 different ways. Number 4, you're going to say it 2 different ways. So you're actually answering six times. But use the rules. You got 4 different meanings, 4 different sentences here, and give me the translation into Spanish. Okay, so pause and come right back. Okay, número 1, it's a big house. The adjective we're going to use is grande. We're not saying it's a great house, we're saying it's a big house, so it's going to come after, and it's going to be grande. Es una casa grande. Número 2, it's a great car. Same adjective, grande, but now we're saying great, so it's going to come before the noun. Es un gran auto. Es un gran auto. Número 3, Lola's a good friend. Okay, 2 different ways. Lola es una buena amiga. Lola es una amiga buena. Okay, the meaning doesn't change, but there are 2 ways you can write it. Lo mismo con número 4. Javier es a good friend. Javier es un buen amigo. Javier es un amigo bueno. Okay, muy bien. Sentences, you can number your papers again through 6, but you're going to change it from the masculine form to the feminine form. Okay, the example here, el chico es mexicano. And change that to la chica es mexicana. So go ahead and pause the video and then come back and we'll go through the answers together. This one has a recording with it, so you're going to hear somebody else speak it. but pause the video when you're ready to come back and check your answers.
Estructura. 3.1. Descriptive adjectives. 1. Transformar. Change each sentence from the masculine to the feminine. Repeat the correct answer after the speaker. Modelo. El chico es mexicano.
La chica es mexicana.
1. El ingeniero es español.
La ingeniera es española.
2. El hijo de Sara es guapo.
La hija de Sara es guapa.
So 3 things to change there: the article, the noun itself, and the descriptive adjective.
3. Los niños son ingleses.
Same thing here.
Las niñas son inglesas.
4. El profesor es norteamericano.
La profesora es norteamericana.
5. Es un conductor bueno.
Es una conductora buena.
6. Los turistas alemanes son antipáticos.
Las turistas alemanas son antipáticas.
Okay, muy bien. So again, hope that made sense to you. Whatever you didn't get right, whatever you didn't quite understand, rewind the video, go through Panorama, go back through the explanations here. The concept is something you're already familiar with. We're changing these things to agree in gender and in noun. There is obviously some vocabulary to work through, some adjectives to memorize and to learn, but this is doable. This will help you to be able to expand your vocabulary just ton as you can actually describe things and not have to just point and talk around things. So muy bien. As always, let me know what we can do to help. Okay, got my office hours. Happy to help you guys with whatever you need. Talk soon.